Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today's video is my eyeshadow palette declutter. I've been teasing this for a little while now, and honestly, I wasn't planning on doing it so soon. I was planning on doing this at some point in the first 3 months of 2021, and I just feel ready to get it done now, especially after my 2 videos last week where I swatched every eyeshadow by color category. I felt like I got a really good picture of everything I have. I was able to really take inventory of each color of eyeshadow that I own. So I'm gonna start with my palettes. I have 18 palettes, and then we're also gonna go through my singles. So I do have a magnetic palette of singles here, 20 of those, and I also am gonna go through my individual singles. As you can see here by YouTube standards, I don't have a huge palette collection by any means, so my declutters are typically not the kind of declutter where I get rid of 75% of my stuff or even 50%, but I do see myself probably getting rid of maybe 5-ish palettes. We'll just see where it goes. I haven't 100% decided what I'm keeping and getting rid of yet, but I do have an idea of what's gonna stay, so let's go ahead and hop into it. First, I have 2 Profusion palettes. I have the Profusion Mauves palette and the Profusion Spectrum palette. These are very affordable palettes. I actually am going to keep both of these, believe it or not. I really like the Mauves palette. The quality of this one is incredible, especially considering that it is only $5, but even just regardless of the price, it's a really nice palette. I especially love the shimmers in here. It's a great just monochromatic mauve-y berry palette that I will be keeping. Next we have the Spectrum palette, and I have gone on a little bit of a journey with this guy. I don't love the formula of this palette, and I keep putting this sort of on my mental chopping block where I'm like, this is probably gonna go in my next declutter. It's always kind of in that limbo phase where I think I'm gonna get rid of it, and then I just can't seem to let go of this. The thing that causes me to keep hanging on to this is just the fact that so many of the shades in here I don't have elsewhere in my collection, and I have come up with some really fun looks with this palette that make me say, you know what, nope, this is gonna have to stay, because it's just fun. Even though the quality is not incredible, and some of the shades, especially this orange one, really do frustrate me. Others of the shades are, they take a little bit of building, but I can work with them, and they're just fun colors. So I think one day I will probably stumble upon my perfect sort of rainbow palette like this. Until then, I think I will keep this and just continue using it, because there's a couple of colors in here that I just really love, like this light blue color. I did a really fun look with that shade all over my lid yesterday. This cobalt blue, I love. I don't have anything else like that. This lime green is so fun. I don't normally like lime green, but something about that shade is just fun to me. I just can't seem to let go of this palette. I know, it's crazy. Then I have 2 e.l.f. palettes, Earth and Ocean and the New Classics. So I think I have finally decided to let go of New Classics. I really enjoy this palette. It's a great just kind of one-stop shop for neutral shadows, and I really like a lot of the colors in here. However, as I was going through all my shadows by color category, I realized that pretty much every shade in here I have a duplicate for somewhere else in my collection. One of the main shades that I bought this palette for was Charmer here. I love a matte mauve like that, but I have several other shades in my collection that duplicate that. The silver in here was another reason that I bought this, but I really don't like that silver. It's almost olivey, and it's just kind of, I don't know, not what I was hoping for. And once again, I have other silvers that I like better in my collection. And other than that, it's a lot of just matte browns and light shimmery pinks, and none of them just stand out to me that much in my collection. And the final straw, I think, for me was that this happened recently, and that just makes me even less inclined to want to reach for it. That's kind of one big downfall of these. I mean, these are really affordable palettes, so I guess I can't blame them too much for that. But I also think that e.l.f. has kind of just improved their formula since this palette came out, and the more eyeshadows I've tried since getting this, the less I am in love with this. I loved this when I first got it, and now I think e.l.f. has really stepped it up. I feel like the Earth and Ocean palette is way better in quality, and now that I know what e.l.f. is capable of, I just don't feel as attached to this palette as I used to. So that one is gonna go. However, Earth and Ocean is gonna stay. This is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. I did a video back in December if I could only keep 5 palettes. This was one of them. There was like no question about it. This would absolutely stay. I can honestly look at every single shade in here and say, yep, love that shade, love that shade, love that shade. And so many of the shades in here I don't have elsewhere in my collection. So this I feel like is very important to my collection and it will absolutely stay. Okay, so I have 5 ABH palettes, and the most recent one that I added to my collection is Sultry. I got this one on a really good sale, and I'm going to keep this because I just bought it, and I do feel like now that I have this, I almost kind of have everything I need in terms of neutrals. I mean, so the shimmers in here they're creamy, they're pigmented, they are just so like metallic, and I love the ABH shimmer formula. That is one of the main reasons I bought this palette. And there's also just some shades in here that I don't have anywhere else, like Cyborg, Slate. Yeah, love this one. It's obviously gonna stay. My oldest ABH palette is Modern Renaissance. This one I've had since I think 2017. Honestly, this one, if I were to let go of any ABH palette, I think it would be this one. I feel a little bit attached to this palette for nostalgic reasons because I bought it for my friend's wedding. This was the palette that we all wore in her wedding, and it's really hard for me to let go of this because it's also such an iconic palette. But at the same time, I'm not quite as into these tones anymore, and it only has 2 shimmers in it, which normally I like for a palette to have more mattes or more shimmers than mattes. This one is predominantly matte, and part of me wants to keep this and start like trying to maybe hit pan on some more shades, but I also just don't feel quite as inspired by this palette as I did when I first got it. So I think I'm gonna put this in a maybe pile, and we'll see how I'm doing once I get to the end, and we'll see if this one needs to go, but I'm gonna put it in a maybe pile. I just can't decide right now. My Norvena Subculture and Soft Glam palettes, these are all gonna stay. I really love all 3 of these. Norvena, this one grew on me a lot. I didn't like it at first, but this one is just so romantic. I love the pinks and purples in this one. I love the soft kind of fairy-like theme of this palette, so I'm gonna keep that. Subculture, again, I just don't have any other color story like this in my collection. This palette is a little bit challenging to work with, but I don't mind because I just really like the colors in here. I always have fun when I use that palette. And then Soft Glam is kind of like my perfect warm tone palette. And I feel like this is another reason I really don't need to keep e.l.f. New Classics, because these are similar. I would not say they're dupes. I mean, I think Soft Glam leans a bit more warm, but if I'm gonna pick for one of these, it's gonna be Soft Glam. So that one is definitely gonna stay. Next I have, this is my oldest palette. This was like my first high-end palette purchase. This was my favorite palette for a really long time, and it's hard for me to let go of this, but I think it is time. I've had this since 2016, and just when I look at these shades, I really don't see anything that unique to my collection other than the shade Flirty, which I really like. I do have pan on that one. That one is really probably the reason I've kept this palette for so long. It's a purple with a golden kind of reflect to it, and maybe I will depot that shade and keep that because I really do like that shade, and I don't have anything else quite like it in my collection. But other than that, all these other shades I have multiple times over in my collection. When I first tried this, I thought, you know, this is such an amazing palette, the quality is amazing. But now that I've tried more formulas, this just isn't, I don't think this is as good of quality as I thought it was. I think eyeshadow formulas have just improved over the years, and this one just doesn't stand out to me quite as much as it used to, so I'm sad. I'm sad to part with this one, but I really do think it is time to let go of it. I'm so sad. This is another one that's very new to my collection. I got this for Christmas. The Aether Beauty Rose Quartz palette. Love this color story so much. I also just love the layout of this palette. I'm still testing this out. I actually haven't been as impressed with these middle shimmers as I was hoping to be, but I love the mattes. Like, the mattes in here actually get me excited, and that is rare for me. I usually don't care that much about matte eyeshadow, but the mattes in here are something special, and yeah, I'm still really enjoying this. I just recently got it, so I will probably be reviewing this in my next speed reviews video, so stay tuned for that if you want to hear my full fleshed out thoughts on that one. Okay, next we have one that I was so excited about. I bought this last year when it was on sale for, I think it was almost half off. I think I got this for under $30, which was a really great deal. And this was my first Urban Decay palette. It took me a while to try Urban Decay eyeshadows, but for some reason, I'm not as excited by this palette as I thought I was gonna be. This is very orangey bronze, which makes sense because Honey is kind of amber colored. It's not really that yellow if you think about it. So for some reason, I was hoping for a more yellow palette, and this palette really only has a couple of yellows. It's mostly bronzes and browns. I feel like I keep having to force myself to use this, and I'm just not inspired by it. I don't know, but part of me wants to keep it because I have a channel and it's nice to have it so that I can reference it. But honestly, the green and yellowy side of e.l.f. Earth and Ocean has kind of everything that I wanted from Naked Honey. You can see some similarities there. This palette has some really golden yellows, and I actually, if you watched my swatching all my eyeshadows video, this yellow shade here is actually a little bit better than the Urban Decay one. That's the e.l.f. one, that's the Urban Decay one. The Urban Decay one is a little more sheer, and I actually kind of prefer the e.l.f. one. So I just don't feel like I need a palette dedicated to these like orangey bronze colors, just because I don't tend to wear those colors on my eyes super often. Like I said, I bought this with my own money, so I could honestly probably sell this if I wanted to because I've barely used it. You guys, I think I'm gonna get rid of it. I hate to get rid of something so new, but if it's not getting the love that it deserves, surprised by myself, but yeah. Next, I have another Urban Decay palette. This one I did receive in PR. I had this as my 1 month one palette in November, and I've given this a lot of use. I feel like I've really gotten a good idea of how I feel about it. And I like this palette. I just don't feel like I need to keep it, especially now that I have Sultry. Sultry has a sort of similar color story to Reloaded, and you know what? I actually am going to swatch these next to each other because I've gotten some questions about how these compare, and I actually am curious. I haven't swatched them together. Okay, so here are the swatches. This side is ABH Sultry, this side is Urban Decay Reloaded. There's a lot of overlap. I do think Sultry leans a bit more cool. It has, for example, it has a gray and a silver, whereas Naked Reloaded does not. But you know, they both have this kind of corally color. They both have a light shimmery pearly color. They both have a gold. The shimmer formula of Sultry absolutely beats out Reloaded. It's just way better. You can see by these Reloaded swatches, they're great. Other than like these two shades right here, which are kind of lackluster to me, the others are really nice. I don't feel like there's any dud shades though in Sultry, whereas Reloaded, I really hate the shade Dreamweaver. It's just very dry. Distilled is also kind of that way, and there's just nothing exciting about this palette, whereas even though, yes, these are neutral kind of shimmers, they are exciting to me. Like, they are buttery, they are dimensional, they kind of shift a little bit in the light. They're just really fun, and I think I just kind of answered my own question. I do think that I can let go of Naked Reloaded, even though one reason that I kind of want to keep it is this shade right here, Burn. That is this one right here. I just really like that shade all over my lid. It's kind of a reddish brown shimmer, and it really is pretty all over the lid. I don't feel like I have anything quite like that. The similar shade from Sultry is just not the same. It's not as reddish. But I think I'll be okay without that one shade. I know I could depot. I'm just not really into depotting. I think I'd rather kind of give the full palette to a friend or something. I'm sure I have a friend who would be like so excited to have this, so I'm gonna let go of it. And that is actually 2 out of my 3 Urban Decay palettes are gonna be going. Now, my one Urban Decay palette that is obviously not going anywhere is Stone Vibes. This is like my #1 favorite palette right now. It's just so fun. I love all the shimmers in here. I've talked about it so much. You guys knew this wasn't going anywhere. Then I have 2 indie brand palettes. I'm going to keep both of these. This is Shared Planet Polar Bear. Love this one. Honestly, this is the palette that kind of got me into cool tones. So, gotta keep that one. Love it. And Billy Beauty Eyes of India. This is just a fun one. I love that it's curated down to 10 shades, but there's still so many different directions that you can go with this palette, so keeping. These are 2 kind of smaller palettes. This is the only Colourpop 9 pan I own, Miss Bliss. This one is absolutely gonna stay. I love pastels, I love pinks, I love peaches. I think they're really flattering on fair skin and blue eyes, and I'm definitely keeping this. Now we have one this one I did receive in PR and was kind of just not super into. This is the Ofra Symphony palette. I feel like I can easily let go of this. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, these pans are already magnetic, and there is one shade in here that I would like to keep, and it is the shade Sublime. It's this one right here. This is kind of a duochrome. It's like a reddish purple with a bronzy gold reflect to it, and I just think it's a really fun shade. That is kind of the one shade in the palette that I do feel like adds something unique to my collection. And so I think, I know I just said I don't really like to deep pot stuff, but I'm pretty sure these are like the same size as my Colourpop magnetic singles, if I'm not mistaken. I think I will take that one out and maybe pop, if I do end up getting rid of any of my Colourpop singles, which I think I will, I might just pop it in there, and that way I can still give a full palette to whoever gets this. You know what, actually, the one shade in the Balm Nude Dude that I was talking about, Flirty, is kind of similar to that Ofra one, and I don't think I need both. The Balm one is a little bit softer and not quite as reddish, but I feel like they satisfy a similar need for me. So if I'm not feeling too lazy, I might still depot that, but we'll just see. So those are all my palettes, and so far I have gotten rid of 5, which is honestly pretty good. That's already kind of what I said I was going to get rid of. And then I have my magnetic palette and my like individual singles. I'm gonna go through my individual singles first. And in here I also have a couple of quads. Let's see, the quads I am gonna keep both of these. I have Wet n Wild Walking on Eggshells. This one, I've just come so far panning it, and I feel like I can't declutter it now. I have to keep panning it. So I'm gonna keep that and try to pan that this year. And then also the e.l.f. Rosewater quad. This is one of my favorites. I love this quad. So definitely keeping that. Those are my only two like smaller palettes. Then I have some like individual round singles here. Okay, I love this Loose Shadow from Terramare. This is the shade Bronze Moonstone. It's really, really pretty. However, I learned through my swatching video that this is super similar to one of my Colourpop singles in the shade Snake Eyes. They're not the exact same shade, but they're similar enough that I really don't need to keep both. And I honestly don't reach for these little, especially loose shadows very often. I just don't. So as much as I love this shade, I don't need both of those in my collection. So that's one I can easily let go of. Honestly, this is another loose shadow. This is Nori by Dimension Nails. This is a loose dark green, like emerald green eyeshadow. Really, really pretty. But I just feel like I have other greens in palettes in my collection, especially like this shade in Stone Vibes, Jade, that I'm more likely to reach for because they're not quite as dark. It is shimmery, but it's a little too dark for me to wear all over my lid, and that's usually how I would use a shimmer eyeshadow. So I think I am going to let go of this one just because it's not getting the love that it deserves right now. These are my 3 Colourpop Super Shocks. I have Bill, Sailor, and Liberty. I'm going to keep all 3 of those. This is my only liquid glitter. I don't think I'm going to buy any more liquid glitter shadows after this. Maybe liquid shimmers, but not glitters, just because I don't reach for this very often, but I will. Actually, you know what? This shade is also very similar to Jade from Stone Vibes, and I just don't feel like I need to keep this. I've gotten some good use out of it. I always neglect these liquid glitters, and even though I can keep it and continue to use it, and I would probably end up putting it in a project pan. This actually was in my project pan for a short time in 2020. Yeah, it's the format of these liquid glitters that I just don't feel myself drawn to. So I think I am going to let go of this. Wow, geez, I'm actually surprising myself right now. This e.l.f. Soft Beige Shadow, I'm actually using this as a cream bronzer in my project pan. This will probably be done pretty soon. I've been using that a lot. This is a little single from Natasha Denona in the shade Silk. I got this as like a point perk from Sephora. This is from their bronze palette. This is beautiful. I don't feel like I necessarily need another bronze in my collection, but now that I'm getting rid of Naked Honey, I don't have quite as many bronzes in my collection, and I just really like this shadow. It's beautiful. I might take it out of this little plastic thing and put it in my magnetic palette eventually. I'd probably have to get some magnetic sticky stuff to go on the back, but yeah, this one is gonna stay. And then also this Becca Light Gleam primer and topper in Refract. I love the blue side. I don't love this topper side, but I'm keeping it for the blue side because I love that color so, so much. That actually, I got rid of 3 of those little singles. That's actually really surprising. And then my Colourpop singles, actually, these are mostly Colourpop except like 3 of them are Makeup Geek. I think I actually can get rid of this shade Wake Up Call because this is not really useful to me. I have plenty of these medium matte browns in other palettes in my collection, and for me the purpose of magnetic singles is to kind of fill in gaps within my collection. Like for example, I don't have a lot of yellows in my collection or a lot of like bright blues like this, so this is a way for me to fill in those gaps, but I have no gaps in the medium brown department, so this just isn't really needed here. Okay, another one that I love, but I don't feel like I need to keep is actually the shade Wait For It from Colourpop. This is a matte peach, and now that I have the Miss Bliss palette, this is very similar to the shade Optimist in Miss Bliss. Swatch them next to each other so you can see. I mean, look at how similar those are. They're not the same, but they're gonna look the same on the eyes. Since I'm keeping Miss Bliss, I think I can just go ahead and part with this one. As much as I've loved this over the years, I just don't need 2 of that same color. I think I will keep these others. I'm not wild about this one and this one, the matte purple and blue. This is 143 and what is this, Backstage from Colourpop. I'm not wild about those, but at the same time, I don't really have anything else like those 2 colors, and for the time being, I think they are good to have, so yeah. So that leaves us with our Maybe palette. This was in the Maybe pile, Modern Renaissance. This is so hard, you guys. I don't know if I can do it. Logically, I know that between mauves from Profusion and my other various neutral palettes where I have plenty of browns, I know I don't need these, but part of me still really wants to keep it because it's so like iconic and there is that sentimental value for me. And I also kind of want to start hitting pan on some more of these shades. Even though I've had this for a while, I don't feel like the formula has changed. I know some people say after they've had it for like 2 years, it starts to change. Mine has not. I feel like it still performs great. So, you know what? I feel like I've done so well, and I think I am going to keep this one for now. I'm sure eventually I will, eventually I'll declutter it. I'm not going to keep it for like 20 years, but I still feel like I enjoy having this in my collection, and yeah, I'm just not ready to let go of it yet, so it's gonna stay. So I feel like that was actually really successful. Sometimes I feel like when my collection is getting too big, I can't even enjoy the things that I do love the most because I feel like I'm having to balance all of my attention between all of these palettes, and I think it just feels better to let go of these that I know I'm not loving as much as my like true loves. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I will link my declutter playlist below. I've done some full collection declutters as well, so if you're in the mood to binge declutter videos, that will be linked down below. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye.